Hey guys, so I just want to show you the latest update that we just launched to schemawriter, and that is the schema matrix. And the way that you enter this is that once you have run a report and you click on schemawriter here, you can see that these are all my reports. You click on the button data here, doot, and then you click on schema matrix, doot. And then you see that this is the overview of all the schema types that the top 10 websites are using. But let me actually just show you, let me run an entirely new report for a keyword that I want to rank for. Parasite is your course. I'm going to show you the entire process so you have absolutely no doubt of how this works. And jespernissenseo, that's my company. And Parasite is your course. That will be my target website, no location, and just click generate. So you've probably seen one of my videos before. So what schemawriter is doing now is now scraping the top 10 websites, finding the entities, finding the schema types, and then it's compiling the entire complete web page and organization local business schema for this particular landing page. But let me just click pause and let's get back once it is done. Hold on. Okay, so the pause button is not working, so let me just keep on talking. So Parasite is your course. Let me just see where I am positioned in Google now. Parasite is your course. As you might know, I launched the Parasite is your course a little 3 weeks ago, something like that. So I can see I'm actually ranking number 1. So I won't be making any changes to this landing page, obviously, because I mean, if I'm ranking number 1, I can only go down, right? So number 2 is Udemy with 3 Parasite is your course. Number 3 is this guy, Affiliate Credo. I've watched some of his videos on YouTube. Seems like a super guy. And number 4, Stuart Vickers, is your Jesus. Number 5, and so on and so forth. But anyway, let's just see here. So once this, while this is working, let me just show you how it works inside of this report here for SEO. Oops, sorry, data. So inside the schema matrix, we can see that we have a table where the row names, this is the schema types that we have identified for this particular search term, which is SEO. And we have the top 10 URLs that we see here. And in the case of this particular search term, of course, it's highly competitive. So we know many of these, so I personally know many of these websites. SEO Checkup, Site Checkup, I know this guy. Moz, we know. Link Assistant is also known. Search Engine Land, Yoast, and HubSpot. So what you'll see is that you'll see some lines and then you'll see some green crosses. So the green cross means that this site is using this schema type. So you can see that organization schema seems to be the most prevalent type because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 check marks, right? So 6 websites is using organization. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 websites is using web page. I actually think that we should, I'm probably going to add a count over here on the right side because I think that this will be interesting. But what's interesting in this report is that Yoast.com, that is currently ranking number 9 for SEO, is the website that uses the most schema. And it actually does make sense because Yoast has this SEO plugin called Yoast. So it makes sense that they are focused on utilizing the SEO benefits of having schema. So now my report is done. Let's click the data here. So this is interesting because in the case of this search term, the schema types are slightly different because we have article, breadcrumb list, course, image object, organization, person, podcast series, site navigation element, web page, and website. So the site navigation element, the podcast series, and I think also person was not present for the other search term. It does make sense that at least one website would utilize the schema type, of course. And it's also interesting, I didn't set any location for the search. So the Google API defaulted to the United States location. That's how the Google API works. If you don't set a location, it's just United States or global, which is United States. So I can see that actually I'm not ranking here in top 10. So yeah, I'm not ranking. I don't see myself here. I might be number 10 because I can see that it only scraped 9. But Spotify uses podcast series. Charles Floate, he uses breadcrumb list, person, site navigation element, webpage, and websites. SEO Jesus uses all of them, actually, except course, podcast series, and site navigation elements. And Dr. SEO Net is also using a lot, and Udemy. So I just think that this is interesting because I think for me it gives some sort of insight in how much should I be using schema. I mean, the two websites that represents the persons that I know that knows the most about SEO, and that is Charles Floate and then SEO Jesus. They also use the most amount of schema. It actually does make sense. DrSEO.net is probably, I don't know this website, but probably also a guy that knows a lot about SEO, right? Because of the name. So he is apparently also using a lot of schema here, but it gives me a representation of what schema should I use. And if I see that SEO Jesus is using a lot of schema and Charles Floate is using a lot of schema, and Dr. SEO is also, it might be a good idea to also use a lot of schema. And charlesfloate.com is not ranking because of his domain authority. Let's actually just see here. Parasite SEO course. You know what? I can actually open Mangoose. SEO tools. SERP analysis. Parasite SEO course. United States. So inside of Mangoose, we can actually see, well, what is ranking and what is the domain authority of the web page that is ranking. So Mangoose they have me as ranking number 1, DA19, Clarity FM number 2. That's a Parasite property actually, but they have DA91, Udemy DA92, SEO Jesus. This is not his website. This is img.courses, also DA22. So for this particular search term, it actually seems to me that DA doesn't really matter that much because 19, 22, 26, 19, 18, and then all these guys that have this 61, 92, 70, they are kind of like parasites because udemy.com, this course, it is on Udemy, but Udemy has a lot of courses, so it's not, I mean, it's a wide website, right? So, but anyway, that's the new schema matrix that we have. And in case you didn't know it, we also show you the data. And this might be interesting for some of you that are doing on-page SEO. So schemawriter, of course, is the platform to create the advanced schema. We know this. But we actually also scrape and display the entities that we find and also where we find them. So in the case of this particular search term, Spotify has 7 unique entities, Coda has 16 unique, Charles Floate has 23 unique entities, and so on and so forth. And I can actually open, and then I can see where they are actually found. Spotify has entities in H2, but if we look at the Charles Floate, probably the one that has the best SEO, he has a lot of entities in the H2, or not a lot, but he has entities in H2. let's see here. SEO Jesus has a lot of entities, and he also has them in the H2 search engine optimization and Reddit. So I think this is interesting because look at this. I mean, look at this table here. Entities in H2. We know that we don't know, but there is a correlation between placing entities in the H2 and higher rankings. So I can't say with 100% certainty that we know that it's a ranking factor, but we know. Based on all of my testing, I know that this is a ranking factor. And it's surprising to me that so few entities are actually used in the H2 and H3 headers, and none seems to be found in the H1. So that's surprising. So when we go over here to the graphs, we can see that for this particular search term, we can see that there actually seems to be a negative correlation with the amount of entities and how high you rank. And how can that actually be? And we both see that this for total number of entities, for the number of unique entities. So how can that be? Well, I actually see this for a lot of search terms, that on page 1, I sometimes see either a flat or a negative correlation, meaning that the more entities I have on average on the position, the lower it ranks. So why is that? My opinion and my idea is that because that page 1 in Google is no longer controlled only by factors such as good on-page and good backlinks. There are many, many other rules. If you're looking at the website's ranking on page 1, we have Spotify, Coda, we have Clarity, this Parasite property, we have Udemy, also Parasite property. So we have, and we will also have YouTube and Reddit and Facebook posts. So we will have a lot of information ranking on page 1 just because it's Facebook. It might have bad on page, it might have bad or no backlinks, that particular post on Facebook. It will still be shown on page 1. YouTube posts, YouTube videos, they will rank on page 1 for a keyword just because it's YouTube. So this correlation graph is not really super duper useful for page 1 for competitive keywords like this. Competitive keywords most of the time utilize or are under the spell of a more advanced algorithm than just 10 blue links. I don't know how else to formulate it. We also when I noticed this, that there was this negative correlation, we actually added the word count also, because I thought that it might be interesting to see the entity density. And when you calculate the entity density, that's the amount of entities per word count, right? So it could be you have 1,000 words, and then you might have 10 entities or 20 entities, 20 entities or 30 entities. So the more entities you have per 1,000 word, the higher entity density you have. But we actually, for this keyword, we also see a negative correlation, meaning that it seems to be that the fewer entities that you have in your text, the higher the ranking. But as I just explained you, that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't mean that it's a negative ranking factor to have entities in your content. What this shows us is that Google is having hard-coded rules in their algorithm now to place particular websites in page 1, no matter how bad the on-page is on that particular page. Spotify is there no matter how bad it is, just because it's Spotify. So it's kind of like Parasite SEO, right? So anyway, I just want to show you this. We also have the entity rank relation table. And this shows us the entities we have found And it also shows us the correlation with ranking for this entity. So what this means is that it shows me that the entity called content creation has the highest correlation, positive correlation to ranking of all the found entities. What that means is all else being equal, I stand a higher chance of ranking higher if I place content creation, the word content creation, inside of my content. So yeah, I think this is interesting, and I hope you're going to enjoy this. And let me know what you think in the comments. So yeah, that was it for today. Take care, guys.